Welcome, we're glad you joined us on Come Share the Joy with your host, Debra Schultz. This week's guest is Pastor Rodney Robinette. We're excited to announce that Pastor Rodney, who is a longtime friend of Debra Schultz, will be hosting our upcoming Spring Women's Conference this April. Rodney is married to his lovely wife, Patty. Join us in this two-part series of how Rodney came back to the Lord with a renewed spirit, and also hear about his exciting life in his ministry, along with a wonderful message you won't want to miss. And this week's subject is, Renew a Steadfast Spirit Within Me. Psalm 51 verse 10 NIV. Join us as we welcome Pastor Rodney to the show.
Hello and welcome to Come Share the Joy. I'm here with a dear, I want to say old, can I say old?
You can say old.
Old friend. One of my husband Bob's favorite people in the world. And I think he feels the feeling is mutual, but it is good to have you, Mr. Rodney Robinette. And we are at his church here in Chapmanville, West Virginia. And he has opened the door for us to have a women's conference here. So geared up and ready to do this. And we're so excited and thank you for this opportunity. But today I want to know about Rodney. I want them to know about Rodney. Now back when we were pastoring, he was one of those evangelists that was a hard to get guy. Because my goodness, the souls that have been saved under your ministry. Lives that have been changed. Wow. But he was the best in Southern West Virginia. And everybody knows Rodney Robinette. A lot of you out there do, and a lot of you love him. But you were a fighter, right?
I was.
Tell them a little bit about because we're sharing the joy of our salvation.
The joy of my salvation. Well, I can tell you this, I'm 68, 69 years old. And I've been a busy fella in my life. I've been a very busy fella ever since I was just a little white-headed kid. Running around in a coal can up at Christian, West Virginia. Back in the 60s, I've been a busy fella. Not only with my feet, but I've been busy with my mouth.
Yep. Well, I was going to say
I've been
busy.
It's
good though.
I've been busy. We've been an athlete in my life back when I was young in high school. And that sort of set the tone for my, gave away out of my aggressive behavior. And my energy and my competitive nature and all of these things and all. But I was busy back through as a child, but when I was in high school, I was the athlete. And I played different sports, but boxing was probably what I excelled the most at. And I was a fighter, and when the bell rung, you didn't have to look for me. Somebody said, well, what about that? Well, a coach told me one time, he said, now, Rod, said, I want you to go out there the first round, said, I want you to fill him out. Take your time, said, fill him out. And when the bell rung, I was all over this guy. I was just in his face, just all over him. When I got back to the corner at the end of the first round, he said, well, I can see right now you're not going to fill him out. He said, just keep getting him. And so that's been my nature.
And that's what the Lord has told you. Just keep getting him.
Just keep getting him.
Because he can get you now. I've seen him tear down a big man with the word.
And so, what that means is I've been on the move my whole life. And when I come to God as a backslider in July of 1983, I had fought everything in me to deny God's presence within my life. Until finally, I was exhausted. I said, God, I've had all of this that I want. I said, I'm going to give you my heart, and God, I'm going to serve you till the day that I die.
Yes.
And the same energy that I had lived up to that point with, the zeal, the energy, the aggressiveness, the ability to take a lot of punishment in my life, I took that and I channeled it. God did in the direction of the cross.
Well, he did a good job then.
Yes, he did. And he didn't have to give me any more words. He just had to sort of change my vocabulary. Some individuals have said, said I was quiet and I was reserved and I would have never been viewed as a minister. Well, I would have been. I'm talking about I was a communicator my whole life, talked to anyone and to everyone. And so God did not have to increase my words. He just had to change my vocabulary, give me a new conversation.
Yes.
And so we took off, and we took off running with that in November of 1984 into the ministry. We preached 2 or 3 times in the winter of 84, 85. By the time we got into March and April of 85, Buddy took off, the ministry took off, and it was busy for the next.
Calendar was booked.
Calendar was booked months ahead. Things was happening, people was getting saved, and it was just really good. And I was just a fireball for God, full of life, full of energy, full of enthusiasm, and was not a clown, but I was full of energy.
The way you presented things, you were laughing, and then it was like, boom,
Yeah.
you could get them.
Yeah. Well, here's the thing, even in my jokes back then, when I was really funny, even in my jokes, I never missed a lick. I always knew where I was headed.
Sure.
I always knew that no matter what I was saying, I was leading up to something. It was something, and so, with my life's experiences and all, there's 3 things that God uses, okay? Number 1, he'd say you got to be made up of the right raw material.
Okay.
So I had the right raw material. So you've got to have the right life experiences. Okay. So I had, through my sinful nature, through what God had brought me out of, I had the right life experiences for God to hash out. And number 3, you have got to have the right character. So I was made up of the right raw material. I felt I had the right life experiences, and I had a desire to have the right character, to have the right nature. With that being said, we took off on a journey, buddy, that has not looked up since then.
How about that?
I've been busy for my whole life, and now I'm not as when I was early on, when I was a fighter, when I was boxing, I threw a lot of haymakers, threw a lot of wild licks. But as I got more experience in the ring, I became more accurate. I didn't throw as many punches, but I was more accurate. And same thing has had going on in the ministry of God is that when I was young, I was full of enthusiasm. And I threw a lot of things out there. And I made a lot of licks and was on the move a lot. Said a lot of things. And I was enthusiasm. Had a lot of enthusiasm. I call that youthful enthusiasm.
Yeah.
But I have traded youthful enthusiasm for wisdom. You know what I mean?
I hear you.
And so, all the joke telling that I've told and all the stories that I've told that was funny and that was true, I've calmed all that down and I've matured. And I was sharing with Deb here a few moments ago that what is my life made up of? Well, if I could take one line or a few words and I could try to describe who I am or my framework that I operate off of, it's this, is that I got down by my bedside one night to pray. And I got down and I did not have something to say. I was just quiet for a moment. I said this, I said, God, I said, I want to know the truth, whether it's for me or whether it's against me. And that set in motion a new theme, a new strategy that God began to work with me on. And I am in reckless pursuit of the truth. I'm not on a popularity contest, even though I want to be well liked. Everybody likes to be well liked.
Right.
I like, but at the end of the day, I want to know the truth. I want to know the truth, whether it's for me or against me. And you know what? When you say that, now you got to be committed. Because I promise you, what you commit to God, God can commit back. Okay.
Yes.
And so, with that being said, it's not. I've mellowed out in my sense of humor, even though I still enjoy laughing and still enjoy a good time in God. But at the end of the day, I have got to feel like that I have accomplished something in the Lord.
Yes.
Okay, and that it's a permanent change. It's not a temporary change. It's not, and I don't say this to be disrespectful to anyone. I enjoyed laughing, and I was full of laughter. I was full of
good medicine, the Bible says.
Yeah, it was. It sure.
Yeah.
That's what the Bible says. But I call that a sugar diet.
Oh, like people on junk food.
Yeah. I mean, you can get high. You can get a sugar fix, and you get high. But that's not what stays with you. That energy from that sugar fix will dwindle pretty quick. But the strength or the energy you get from meat,
there you go.
when you get from meat, now it stays with you for a long period of time. And something else that changed my life. Number one, when I knelt down that night, and I said, God, I want to know the truth. I want to know the truth, whether it's for me. Most people would have stopped right there. I said, no, I want to know whether it's against me. I want to know that if I'm wrong, I want to know that I'm wrong. I want you to show me that I'm wrong.
Right.
And of course, when he does that, you just sort of lay in the floor and wallow like a chicken. You can't hold a handle, even though you said that. No. But the other thing that changed my life that has been a building block is this. When I come to understand, Dad, that the old was responsible for the young, and that the educated was responsible for the uneducated, and that the strong was responsible for the weak. Every time I go into a congregation or go into a gathering of people of whatever in any form, I'm probably one of those things. I'm either the oldest, I'm the strongest. I say this modestly, humbly. I'm the most educated, the most intelligent. One of those three things normally I'll realize. So that brings responsibility. And so when I come in contact with somebody, I would rather their lives be affected positively in a way that I could help them more than I would whether they would like me. See, when I was young, I wanted to be liked.
Right.
But now that I'm older, I want to be right, and I want to be able to change their life. And something else is that I would rather. What I'm trying to say is I would rather to help you in the quality of your life without me than to keep you attached to me.
Right.
You follow what I'm saying?
Yes, sir.
So I feel the obligation of telling the truth. I feel the obligation of bearing the weakness, and I feel the obligation of dealing with those that are unlearned. And life has not got easier. Life has gotten harder.
Yeah.
It has, but it's gotten more rewarding. It's more joyous.
Right.
Now I'm not as emotional as I once was, but I'm more committed to God now than I've ever been in my life, Dad. And the thing about it is that I can make a difference.
You can, one at a time.
I can make a difference.
Can I tell one on you, please?
You can, please.
Oh, my
Oh,
goodness.
God, yeah.
I remember at a certain revival that we had, and Rodney, like you said, he was full of life and he was never stopped, and he still never stops. You can ask Patty. But he was at our church, and he was standing behind the pulpit because he was always all over the church, in the back, and he was just everywhere. And he kept standing there and trying to get into his message, and he said, well, you all have to tell the truth. He was, you didn't get married to Patty, God bless her heart. When she found you, she had work to do. But you were older, right?
I was 33.
33 before he ever married. And he's got the most precious, precious wife.
I do.
She is so humble. She's like one of the humblest people that I know. And she's sitting right back there and wouldn't come on. But anyway, Patty, we're in church and waiting for Rodney to take off, He just couldn't get off the ground. And he said, I have a confession to make. He came out and he said, I got one light bulb in my house. This is how busy he was as a bachelor. I got one light bulb in my house and it's not in my bedroom. And he said, I put my shoes on. And he said, I have 2 different shoes on. So he came out and he showed his shoes. Well, it was okay because they were both the same color, but one laced and one was a loafer.
Yeah. And
so then he said, now I can preach. And you did. But it was awesome the way he confessed that he had one light because you were always so busy.
Well,
and now,
what happened was, let me adjust that just a little bit, okay? There was only one light bulb in the bedroom, and there wasn't a light bulb in the walk-in closet.
Okay,
so when I walked into the closet, there wasn't a light in the walk-in closet. And so what I did do, I knew where my shoes was, and I sort of felt around there until I just sort of slid into that. Did not realize what I had done until I was sitting in the front row right before I got ready to get in the pulpit. And I just rolled and laughed at my own self in my mind. I thought, my goodness gracious.
And with that bunch that we were pastoring, they were.
Yeah. I mean, they were a lively bunch of people, and they were exuberant, and they just, I love them, they love me, and so we just we had grown on each other and all. So I took the liberty to identify why that there was a difference in my style.
Yeah, before Jody and Baldy got home.
Yeah, I said, so, I knew before I got out the door, somebody would recognize what was going on. And I wanted to be able to control the damage.
Well, the Bible says confession's good for the soul, right?
And so with that being said, that happened.
That was good, though. That's how busy you were.
I remember one time, let me share this with you, and we'll get on with the about me testimony. I remember one time I got into, I was going to preach that evening at the church where I actually attended, and the pastor was standing up there. And to show you that I do have a good sense of humor, I mean, I'm serious natured now more than I've ever been in my life, and I need to loosen up. But in the meantime, the pastor said, Brother Rod, come on up here, and take care of the message and all. And so when I got up there, I had my back to the congregation, and he leaned, big old long tall fella, Roger Barton was his name.
Yeah.
He leaned down over top of me. He said, Rodney, he said, your pants is unzipped.
Oh, Lord.
And there I am with a congregation full of people, and I got to turn around. And just as God had to put this in my mind, I don't think this way. Just as I turned around, I said, let's all bow our heads for a word of prayer. I said, and so that's true. I said, so while they had their heads praying,
You got yourself fixed.
I was praying, but I was taking care of business. And then I told on myself too then. So you didn't have to worry about telling on me. I was going to tell on myself. So
I love that.
Yeah, I told him that. And so we've had a lot of good memories.
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
And here's the thing about it is, and I don't say this to be disrespectful or to dishonor anything or anyone, and because we all have got our unique call, we've got the way that God's called us. But the first time that God ever touched me, the first time that I ever felt the power of His Spirit upon me, I had a vision. And in this vision, like a TV screen, I saw the instances of my life where that I was standing in front of people. I was just a little white-headed kid, a Christian, but I was standing in front of a group of boys, a crowd of boys, and I was talking. So I saw that, and I saw myself in about the 9th grade in the algebra class, giving a conversation about God in the class and all. And while that time in 78 actually was when the first time I ever felt the power of God, was the TV screen, the vision that I had. The voice in my head spoke this step, said, I have had my hand upon you since you was a child. Said, I have prepared you to preach my gospel. And so with that being said, there was not a doubt in my mind, two things that have happened in my life. Number one, that I had an experience and that forever changed my internal makeup with God. No devil of hell, no lick that he can throw, no depth that I can go to, no height that I can exceed or I can excel to has ever caused me to doubt that God did not have an experience with God that forever changed my life. Internally, number two, there is no devil of hell that cannot tell me that I'm not called to preach God's gospel. In my worst moment, in the worst nightmare I've ever had, at the darkest time in my life, I've never doubted those two facts. Number one, that I had experience. I called that I was born again. Number two, that I was called to preach His gospel. Now, I may not preach it the best you ever heard, but I promise you I'll never get shook. I may not even like how I sound at times. I may not even like the message I may have preached. I may have felt like I may have not been successful that day, but at the same time, nothing has ever doubted it caused me to doubt when I'm called to preach God's gospel.
There you go.
Now, with that being said, where am I at? Well, for the first 15, 18 years of my ministry, I was a very, very, very busy fellow. Very busy. Not too busy, but as busy as you could and should be. And was successful. When I say successful, meaning that I felt like I had an impact. I saw people saved. I saw things happen. Testimonies was given, and on the street people would remember things I had said, and that was a good gauge that they had heard, that the seed had been planted inside of their heart. But in the late 08, 09, 2008, 09, things began to slow down. And I went through a quiet time of the ministry, a quiet time of my life. I still ministry, but not on the pace, at the pace I was. I preached 5, 6, 7 times a week back in those years. But I was down to 2 or 3 times a month, which was sort of unusual for me. And it was a quiet time, and it was a time of studying and reflecting and all. But it was a time of transition. And I fought the Lord to become a Christian. I fought as hard as I could. That old fighting nature within me, I fought it my whole life. One time, one of my grandchildren that I raised was having problems at the school where he attended, and somebody said, "Why don't you tell him to just walk up and pop him in the nose?" I said, no. I said, I won't do that. I said, I've been all my life trying to get that aggressive nature out of me. So why do I want to put that into his life? I said, so no. But with that being said, my fighting nature, the fighter that has been in me my whole life, that worked for me in many areas, has also worked against me in some areas. I fought getting saved, giving my heart to the Lord. I wrestled with that as long as I could. I did not wrestle with the ministry because I knew about that. But I wrestled with the ideal about that things were slowing down, and I knew in my heart that God was going to change things in my life. I knew that. I had opportunities to be a pastor back through the years, and churches had asked me, and people had asked me, and opportunities had come my way, and I said, no. I said, I don't want to be a pastor. I don't want to be. But once again, after having fought with God for several years, several years, I finally said, God, I said, preach is in me. I said, I cannot live if I don't preach. The Bible says, woe unto me if I preach not the gospel. Mm-hmm. I asked a teacher one time, a woman that had been a teacher, and she said this. I said, do you still, after having been a teacher all these years, I said, do you still have problems with wanting to teach? She said, oh, no. She said, I don't teach no more. I thought to myself, well, he was never a teacher. Mm-hmm. If you
a teacher will teach.
A teacher will teach. A preacher will preach. A singer will sing. Yeah. So I wasn't mean to her. I'd never said that, but I thought in my mind, well, I said, you was a communicator. I said, but you was not an instructor of things. That's because you can't turn that off. Mm-hmm. I said, you have to.
It's born in you.
It's in you. I said, and I said, you have to restrain yourself. Mm-hmm. You have to make yourself shut up. You have to make yourself not talk. You have to make. I said, so anyway.
We have that same problem.
We do, don't we?
Talking. Yeah.
Well, here's the deal. This is that I find my strength as a person, of who I am, of doing what God wants me to do. Mm-hmm. Okay. With that being said, I was fighting not being an evangelist now, or preaching out,
right.
Up and down the hollers and the creeks and the rivers of West Virginia here, southwestern Virginia, and northeastern Kentucky. And finally, I said, God, I'll tell you what I'm going to do. I said, God, I will, if you want, I will accept the reality. I'll accept it. I said, if you want me to pastor, God, I said, if you'll give me a church, I said, I'll pastor. That was after so many years. That was after 25 years at that time. No. That was in 10, 40. That was 30 years ago. Somewhere there about. My math needs to work better. And I said, God, I will, because I'll pastor. So God, I said, I'll tell you what I'd like to ask you to do. I'd like to ask you this. I said, would you consider allowing me to pastor the First Church of Christ in Chapmanville, West Virginia?
You asked that.
I asked that. And I never made a big deal out of it.
It's a beautiful, beautiful facility.
It is well. And I said, God, if you would allow me to do that, I said, I would appreciate that. I'll pastor wherever you want me to. I said, but that's my request. I said, I will pastor, but would you allow me to do that? And I just sort of put that out before the Lord. I said, and went on about my business, continued to preach a few times a month, waiting and watching and all. And do you know what happened? They came without a pastor at this church.
Oh, sure.
And I thought, well, all right, God. I said, here we go. So I made myself known to the congregation, to the leadership here, the First Church of Christ in Chapmanville. I said, and made myself known. I said, and told them that I would be open if they would consider me as the pastor of this work. Well, that being said, have to understand the name of the church is First Church of Christ of Chapmanville. Mm-hmm. I said, but I say this respectfully to all the other churches. This is not a Church of Christ. No disrespect to the Church of Christ. I am Pentecostal by flavor, Pentecostal by nature. I can get loud and boisterous. I can hoop and holler and shout and run. I can do all the job. I can do every of those things. This, I pastor this church. So we are a non-denominational, community-based type church. We are Pentecostal by opportunity. We give that an opportunity to work as he wants to work inside the building and all. So we're here. We've been here for 3 or 4 years, 2 or 3 years now. We're trying to get it up and running through God's help. I feel like I have done what I should have done. I've been a busy fella, that same old fella, that little kid that was always busy, that boxer that was always busy in the ring, that worker that was always busy on the job, that guy that was always busy in the community. When I got to be pastor, I took all that energy of evangelism, took all that energy of my nature, and I funneled it and channeled it into this congregation. And I'm waiting on God to.
He's going to move. Revival is here.
You said that.
I said that.
You said that.
I was on my way to another church just this morning. And I was almost there. And the Lord said, turn around and go to Rodney's. And the revival is here.
Tune in next week for part 2 to hear Pastor Rodney's response and a wonderful message. This was a leading of the Lord for revival, and also leading up to the upcoming Women's Conference. See you next week. Debra Schultz Ministries presents Women's Spring Conference, and this spring the theme is, I Am Enough, Christ is in Me. The conference starts Saturday, April 5th through April 6th. Meet and greet begins Saturday from 10 a.m. through 11 a.m. And the worship leader is Debra Schultz. And at 11 o'clock, Francis Collins will be ministering. There will be a short break at noon. Ministering right after the noon break is Diane Epling. Sunday morning at 11 a.m., Judy Logan will be ministering. Once again, Sunday, Debra Schultz will be singing. Our host church is the First Church of Christ, which is located at 181 Garnet Avenue, Chapmanville, West Virginia. Many thanks to the host pastor, Rodney Robinette, and his lovely wife, Patty.
Old Hilliard Plumbing is a woman-owned business that has been serving the Hilliard, Ohio, and surrounding communities for over 25 years. They provide plumbing expertise with exceptional service to their customers, including contractors, professional home builders, and homeowners. Their services range from general home plumbing, commercial plumbing, new builds, and plumbing upgrades. They also offer gas hookups for new appliances and all your gas line needs. Customers have praised Old Hilliard Plumbing, stating that they were the ultimate in professional and courteous service. No job is too big or small. So contact us at 614-777-9320 for expert plumbing service with options to fit your budget.